Okay, so let's now talk about adjectives and adverbs. So far we've talked about nouns and verbs. Now we're going to talk about some words that modify nouns and verbs. Adjectives and adverbs. So both of these are modifier words. That means they describe or modify some other word in the sentence. Adjectives are words that express property concepts or something about an object or a noun, some property that it has. And these types of words in English precede nouns. This is something that varies across languages. In some languages, adjectives follow their nouns. In English, adjectives precede the noun. That means they come before the noun. Adjectives are also recursive, so that means you can have more than one. You can have theoretically as many adjectives as you need. So for instance, in English you can say a big, round, green ball. We could add more adjectives, although at some point it starts to sound a bit funny to most English speakers. So we describe adjectives in terms of their semantics. They encode property concepts. Their function, they modify nouns, and their syntactic or distributional properties. Primarily that they precede nouns, so they come right before nouns. So what if a word doesn't precede a noun? Is it still an adjective? It could be. So remember that the tests are just diagnostic. They're not definitional. So a good example of this is I am happy. So happy does modify I, which is a noun, a special type of noun called a pronoun, and it doesn't precede that noun, but it is still an adjective. Is every word that modifies a noun an adjective? No. Again, the tests are diagnostic, not definitional. So for instance, we have phrases in English like school board and confirmation hearings. And school and confirmation both modify the following noun, but they are not adjectives. They are in fact also nouns themselves. One test we have for identifying these words as nouns rather than adjectives is to see if they can be further modified by an adverb, like very. So if we try to say something like very school or very confirmation, these phrases sound ungrammatical. That's because school and confirmation are not adjectives. They are nouns. So adjectives modify nouns. That is a necessary, but not a sufficient definition for the category adjective. Adverbs, on the other hand, modify other types of words. So adverbs can modify adjectives, like we saw with very, very happy, but they can also modify verbs and other adverbs. However, not all adverbs behave the same. So we have at least two subcategories of adverbs, which we'll look at here quickly and yesterday. Okay, so adjectives modify nouns, and adverbs also modify, but they modify words other than nouns. So they modify verbs, they modify other adjectives, like we just saw with very, very happy, and they modify other adverbs as well. Quickly and yesterday are both words that we might categorize as adverbs. So, for instance, I ran quickly. Quickly modifies ran. Or I can say I ran yesterday, where yesterday modifies ran, tells you when I went running. But they behave a little bit differently, which we'll see here. So we can modify adverbs like quickly with another adverb, very, but we cannot do that with yesterday. So very yesterday is ungrammatical in English. We can also say in English, she quickly left, but it's ungrammatical to say she yesterday left. And we can combine multiple adverbs like she spoke quickly and softly, where both of those modify how she spoke, but we cannot say she spoke quickly and yesterday for some reason. So this is good evidence that we have at least two subcategories of adverb in English. And we could call these manner adverbs, which tell us something about how an action was done or how an event occurred. It happened quickly, it happened bravely, he did it bravely. And we also have temporal adverbs that tell us something about when an event happens. Yesterday, now. Note that the suffix ly often occurs on adverbs, but not always. For example, yesterday does not have a suffix ly. And ly can also derive adverbs, specifically manner adverbs, but not temporal adverbs. So I can add ly to many different types of adjectives, like lazy, for instance. And we can use lazy as an adverb by adding ly and saying lazily. So he sat lazily on the chair. In your textbook, Van Gelderen notes that some adjectives in English can also function adverbially without an affix. So this is something that is now a part of standard English, even though there are often prescriptive rules against it. We might say that this is an informal feature of standard English. So for example, the fast car must be a police car. Here the word fast is a adjective. And in the second sentence, the car drove fast. Here the word fast is an adverb because it modifies the verb drove. So this is perfectly grammatical in English and is very common in standard English. So what can fast be? Fast can actually be 4 different categories, lexical categories. It can be a verb, as in I fasted for a week. It can be a noun, in the fast lasted for a month. It can also be an adjective, so that's a fast car. And it can be an adverb, like he likes to drive fast. So this just summarizes the main differences between adjectives and adverbs in English. Adjectives modify nouns, adverbs modify other words. Adjectives have special suffixes like ous, ary, al, ic. Adverbs often have ly, but they may have no suffix at all. Adverbs modify other categories, adjectives modify nouns. So, some practice. Let's try and identify the lexical category of the word short in the following sentences. There's a short in the basement, she's shorter than me, they shorted the system. The only way to do this is to use our diagnostic criteria, our syntactic tests. So in the first sentence, there's a short in the basement. We might say that short here is a noun because it's preceded by the determiner a. And it's also got a preposition between it, short, and the next noun, basement. This word here, in. Okay? How about number 2? She's shorter than me. Can we put a determiner like a or the before shorter? A shorter, the shorter? These both sound ungrammatical, so it's probably not a noun. Is it an adjective? If it's an adjective, we should be able to modify it with an adverb. Something like much. She's much shorter than me. That sounds good. So this looks like it's probably an adjective. Finally, they shorted the system. Now it looks here like short is actually being used like a verb. It has a past tense marker on it. So what's going on with the word short? Well, let's consider an ungrammatical sentence like, the tailor shorted my pants. This is ungrammatical and also probably sounds kind of funny. Why? Well, it seems like the best analysis is that we have something that's basically a noun, short, the noun in English, which is then used to mean to short circuit. So it's basically a noun, a short circuit, that we then use as a verb, to short circuit. So when the tailor shorted my pants, well, it seems like it means that he somehow short-circuited your pants, which doesn't make any sense. But maybe you're trying to say he made your pants shorter. Then we have another short, we have the adjective, we have the adjective short, which means not tall. Now this is basically an adjective. Note that the adjective short can also be used as an adverb, just like we saw with fast. So we can say the runner stopped short of the finish line, meaning the runner stopped a little bit before the finish line. Okay, a little bit more practice. So what categories or category is the word experienced in the following sentences? They experienced it, and they are experienced. So again, the only way to figure this out is through the use of diagnostic tests. So we can try to modify the word with an adverb like very. They very experienced it. They are very experienced. So this kind of degree modification only works with adjectives. So that indicates that experienced here is an adjective, not a verb. We can also try to use a prefix like in, which is something that attaches to adjectives. They inexperienced it. This sounds odd, but they are inexperienced. This sounds okay. Again, because experienced in the second sentence is likely an adjective, whereas in the first sentence it's a verb. Finally, we can try to coordinate it with another adjective. So they experienced it and smart. This sounds very odd because smart is an adjective and experienced is a verb. But in B, they are experienced and smart. This sounds okay because both experienced and smart are adjectives. So experienced can be either a verb or an adjective, depending on how it's used in the sentence. Words like this, words like experienced and experiencing, are called participles, and they are mixed categories because they show properties of both verbs and adjectives.